Good afternoon, everyone. So I think this is going to be a fun session. You're going to get a glimpse of agents who are actually doing and acting on your behalf within the travel space. So I'm going to start it off, and there's going to be another presentation, and then we're going to all circle around and talk about it. So first off, let me just jump in. My name is Michael Gulmann. I'm the CEO of Otto. My background has been 15 years in the travel space with Expedia. I was the Chief Product Officer of Agencia and was the SVP and GM for the transportation business for Expedia. I decided to start this company because I think there's this real need to cut through all the choice there is and actually deliver to travelers, frequent travelers, a unique experience that is tailored directly for them. So really, in the terms of personalization. Along with me is CD Wang, who's the CTO. CD comes from a background in machine learning and data science from companies like Snap, Microsoft, Uber. At Uber, he designed the algorithms to match drivers at airports for over 150 million users. We have an amazing set of investors. We came out of stealth in September timeframe. We have angel investors, former CEOs of Expedia, Orbitz, Faircast. Steve Singh, the founder of Concur, has backed us through Madrona. And then we also have Chief Product Officer of a public payments company and CEO of a digital hosting company. So let's jump into Otto. Otto very much is a personal AI assistant. Think of it as your own personal executive assistant. Most of you all travel a lot. Some of you have the luxury of having an executive assistant who helps you book that travel. If you've never had that, I can tell you it's an amazing experience. The better you get to know your executive assistant, the better they get to know you, the more personalized that experience gets to, right? So first off, imagine that this is Otto, your executive assistant, understands your preferences, knows what hotels you like, knows what chains you like, knows what airport you're flying out of, has all your payment details, and really just handles things. So all you have to ask is, book me a flight for my trip to the Chicago office. Even better, what if it's proactive? Otto, just like my executive assistant, would have access to my calendar and says, I booked your flight. And so Otto comes to me and says, I booked your flight and hotel for your trip to Chicago next week. Didn't even have to do anything. But in travel, everything, or sometimes things go wrong, right? So it'd be nice if you also have that predictive problem solver. So Otto contacts me and says, your flight home was canceled. I've switched you over to the Delta flight. So with that, think of this as designed for the frequent traveler so that Otto can learn and get to know you as you're going along. And so really just in the last 3 weeks, we did the first ever completely AI-driven air booking and the first ever completely AI-driven hotel booking. And I'm going to invite you to take a look at this as I narrate over it. There we go. So the first thing is, here's Otto. Otto offers to plan a trip for me. I just thought I'm heading to Phocuswright. This is a screen recording of the session. I made a mistake. I thought Phocuswright was in New York. Maybe it should be. But I asked it to book me a flight to JFK, arriving the 18th, home on the 21st. It says, fine, let me go ahead and take a look at that. Now, Otto knows that I prefer Delta, Alaska, and nonstop flights. I'm a business traveler. I don't want to waste my time. I actually don't want to look at 30 different things. So it gives me back Delta and Alaska flights. In this case, I click the button, select the Delta flight. But that's just really to show you that you can click buttons or you can talk. You can audio talk. You can type into Otto. In this case, I'm going to say, pick the 440 Delta or departure flight for me. So Otto then picks that one, and then comes back and asks me what fare I want. Now, if I had my policy loaded in, if I have a company policy, I can upload that in Word document, PDF, any which way, or I could just tell Otto what my policy is. Then Otto would just automatically pick the fare for me. In this case, I said I want Comfort Plus, and it's going through. Because this is the world's first ever AI booking and flight, I had to put in all my payment details and information about myself for Otto here. So blurred out my credit card details so you can't borrow those. But essentially, I submit everything. Otto says, your booking is confirmed. And this is a real Delta confirmation number for the first ever air booking. It then offers what I like help in booking a hotel. It already knows the travel dates and immediately jumps into that, again, knowing my preferences. So let's take a look at the hotel booking. So in this case, I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to tell it that I want to go stay close to the Bean in Chicago. It's a statue in Chicago. But specifically, I'm telling it that I want to have that hotel have a rooftop bar. Now, a rooftop bar is not a piece of metadata. It's in the descriptions of the hotels. What Otto's able to do is to look through all of the information about all the hotels and then find things that are relevant. You know, asking it, why did I recommend this? And so it's very, very important for you as a traveler to have trust in Otto. So Otto along the way tells you all the time, you know, why it's picking certain things for you. In this case, it has a rooftop bar. In fact, all 4 of those had a rooftop bar and are within walking distance of the Bean. Think about how many different websites and things you would need to go to in order to do a transaction like this. So because I already have all my payment details in here, Otto simply asks me and says, great, I've got everything I need, do you want me to book it? And you say, yes, confirmed. Now in the future, as I trust Otto and Otto understands that I trust it more, it might skip this step. You can do some really, really interesting things with Otto. You can ask it about the destination. You can, you know, I tested out. It gave me some flights. It said, can you try again and find some earlier flights for me? Otto went back out and found those earlier flights, and then I booked those. So that's Otto. Thank you very much.
Up next, our next glimpse is from Flockx. Please welcome Mark Losey.
Hello. I am a Phocuswright first-timer, so thank you for having me here. And I wanted to share a quick Phocuswright experience before I get started. I had kind of a different plan of what I was going to present, and then I went through the app, and I had some network meetings, and I met with Yulia Yarosh, and she asked me some pointed questions about the context of what I was talking about, and so I changed things a little bit to be more relevant, I think, to this industry in particular. So I represent 2 companies. One of them is called Flockx, the other is Fetch AI. At Flockx, we are focused on solving this epidemic of loneliness. Most people don't know, in 2023, the Surgeon General of the United States emitted a special report indicating that half of American adults feel lonely and isolated, and that comes with some significant health risks. Increased risk of cardiovascular disease, increased risk of dementia, stroke, and premature death. So, a dramatic problem for us all to face. What's the solution to that? So, in order for humans to feel happiness, we need to produce a hormone called oxytocin. The most effective and efficient way to produce that hormone is in the presence of other humans. Can't happen over a Zoom call. And so that's relevant to this crowd because this is the industry of connectedness, right? Through the mechanics of getting people into in-person activities and events. So at Flockx, we produce an AI sidekick that looks out for your best interest. And its mission is to get you off of the screens and to in-person activities in communities of shared interest. So if you imagine the knitting circle, the acoustic jam, the pickup basketball game, or a conference like this, somewhere where you're in this in-person activities that can help you feel that joy. So, relevant to this crowd, like why does this matter that I'm trying to solve the epidemic of loneliness or that I'm building this AI sidekick, is that the sidekick that I'm building is designed to proactively look out for my best interests, to proactively take action on my behalf. So this is the industry that survived a global pandemic and thrived in the aftermath of that and is the masters of connectedness. So I wanted to express that my sidekick as an agent who takes action on my behalf is going to be a part of your conversion metrics because it's going to go out and make purchases for me, and that's going to be a new way of sales. And so this industry is going to have to understand how those conversions take place, and they'll be optimized in a different way. So I use something called social penetration theory to encourage my users to share information about their interests with their sidekick. And so my agent, when it goes to make a purchase, is going to come with a preference graph that it can selectively share the appropriate preferences in order to create a personalized experience on the other side. And I've heard a lot of people talking here about how do I create a personalized buying experience and to what degree will people share information during the buying experience. But my sidekick is concerned about the actual experience being personalized, and so it will share exactly the right information that's required in order to design that personalized experience that's gonna be about outcomes for its humans. So that conversion isn't gonna be like, I tested red buttons over green buttons and these convert more. My sidekick is gonna look at the experience, the aftermath, and the effects on me of the experience. And so it's gonna be a completely different type of conversion world. So my sidekick, personal, ethical, connected to me, and we're trying to put in a sense of honor and ethics to make sure that we're focused on human flourishing and not amplifying this disconnection. So again, not trying to get you addicted to the screen, but to get you off the screen and out to those in-person events. So the second half is about Agentverse. So Fetch AI is a company founded by Humayun Sheikh. He was a significant factor in the success of DeepMind and then their exit to Google. And so here's his inside vision into the future. Agentverse, no one was talking about agents or AI agents 5 years ago, but that's when Agentverse was first starting to be built. And it is these foundational building blocks for an AI to AI transactional world. So it's an open ecosystem for AI agents to connect, collaborate, and transact with each other. So my sidekick's gonna access Agentverse in order to find agents that are launched from this industry to design a vacation or book a flight or et cetera. So I think it's a pretty fundamental change to the way that we will transact in general. So what does Agentverse provide and what's the real value of it? So I've sat through a lot of presentations of really interesting AI agent technology here that are trying to provide efficiency and productivity inside an organization, whether that may be, spoke to a couple guys that have this fantastic solution for automating call center calls and being the first line of defense, and then if it can resolve the problem, having fail over to humans. That's kind of cognition. What Agentverse provides is a communication. So if you imagine that it is the network card on your computer, not the CPU. So those protocols of communication. So how do we define protocols of communication for AI agents to talk to each other? If you open ChatGPT and put it on audio mode and two phones and put them next to each other, it will devolve into madness and it will go on forever. The conversation will never end. So what we have to do is we have to use something called a directed graph. And so it's kind of a math of relationships, but we all conduct directed graph conversations every single day. When we walk up and I introduce myself and exchange names, that's the node one, that's the intro. Then we follow that edge to the next node of that directed graph, which would be shared interest discovery. What do we have in common? And then we follow that node to, maybe mutual needs negotiation. And then maybe we exit with a goodbye. And so that is a directed graph conversation. We can put those same guardrails around AI to AI communication that ensures they're focused on outcomes and getting the right information in the right step of the process. So what's the real thing that matters to this crowd is how do you give your agent superpowers? Right? How can you enable your agent to dynamically source different talents, cognition, and abilities from Agentverse, being able to create something that's bigger than the sum of its parts? So kind of a great example is this conference. So my sidekick knew that I was coming to this conference. It could potentially reach out and source an agent that knows how to plan what I'm going to pack on the trip. And so that becomes one component. Then it also reaches out to another agent who's a conference analyzer and analyzes all the events and then returns to me which ones I should be signed up for, and then potentially signs up for them to make sure I'm at all the events that are relevant and contextually relevant to me. And then I'm gonna have a bunch of meetings. I'm gonna connect with a bunch of people. So my sidekick could source a customer research agent that would indicate who are the best people for me to speak to, and then go do independent research projects on every one of them and bring me the most relevant information about each one of those so that I show up to every meeting absolutely informed and prepared about what their preferences are and what their business is and how I can help them. And at the end, what this business knows really well, this industry knows really well, it can then book my flight and my hotel for the conference. That is the Agentverse.
We continue with the discussion. Please welcome the chairman of AMGiNE, Terry Jones, and the chief revenue officer of Sojern, Noreen Henry. Your moderator for this discussion will be senior tech and corporate market analyst at Phocuswright, Norm Rose.
This is certainly an interesting session. We're talking about a future that is going to be quite different. I'll let Terry ask the first question. Go for it, Terry.
Let me ask a question about agents. So we're talking about an ecosystem with agents talking to agents.
Yep.
Because agents talking to websites that aren't optimized is, we had that problem at Kayak when we started. We were just knocking everybody down. The inventory wasn't ready. So you're talking about a pretty big wheel to get started where both individuals have to build or buy their agent and suppliers have to build agents to play. And we heard that in the metaverse was going to happen. So how do you envision getting suppliers to play with agents? Because it could lead to commoditization for sure.
Sure, well, I think right now, people are actively building AI agents within their businesses in order to achieve efficiency and productivity. Right?
Yeah.
So what we've done in order to, right, like I said in my talk, is it's about communication, not the cognition. So they're building the AI agent to them as the cognition piece. And so what we do is we build basically an adapter for whatever tech they've used, Crew AI, AutoGen, LangGraph, LangChain, and now it's just that communication layer, and through those directed graph conversations, the cognition layer stays with bring your own framework, bring your own agent of any kind, and now just tack this in 4 or 5 lines of code. You can register and have an identity on Agentverse, and now with an additional few lines of code, you can be utilizing a given communication protocol, and now your agent operates on the Agentverse.
So Terry, let me try it in kind of just in the travel world, right? So Otto is a vertical solution, meaning Otto is going to be, absolutely fantastic at helping you personalize everything and booking your travel for you. So we're not going out to a bunch of different websites. We're not scraping. We're not hitting metadata, things like that. We're going directly to the APIs of the travel providers, right? So they are already
I get it with Otto. I just didn't get it with
and so
open tool like that.
To talk about this, so imagine now you have this horizontal personal assistant that somebody goes out and develops. And that personal assistant may be great at doing your calendar. And then that personal assistant says, and that user says, well, actually, I want my personal assistant to be able to also book travel. Well, they theoretically could just connect their personal assistant to Otto, and now that personal assistant has the ability to book travel as well. So I think the overall ecosystem of agents talking to each other is not this concept of there's some cloud-based bunch of computer systems talking to each other. It's more that there's a specialization for each agent who are doing certain things, who then can work together to accomplish something, so that then the calendar agent can put it on the calendar and after it's been booked. That's an example of it, I think, just to simplify it.
Noreen?
Okay, so Terry and I have been down the block before on trip planning and booking with AI. My question is more about the customer service side of it. So, when you have I get booking, that's kind of straightforward, but when you have a problem, I got to change my trip. Sometimes I can't even do that online. I have to call somebody to actually do that. So how is your system doing that? Is it talking to another AI agent that's doing that? Like, how is that all happening?
So let's level set real quick. So we are currently in alpha. What that means is that our angel investors and our investors have access to Otto right now. What you saw is kind of I wouldn't say the limits, but that's where we are right now, is in booking. So I'm not going to pretend that we're any further. But I can tell you very, very quickly what we have built and where we're going to go with it is that if you have a problem right now after booking, I think Otto within, I'm looking down at CD to verify, but I think Otto within a week will be able to cancel. Within 2 weeks, we'll be able to change your travel as well. So it's going extremely quickly because we have access to the APIs and it's a lot more straightforward when you don't have to build flows. You don't have to build a web interface. You essentially have a communication agent, which is Otto, and you're building the API connections. So that's a lot more straightforward. There will be a release valve is kind of how I'm thinking of it, right? So the agent will be able to do as much as it can. There's always going to be some case that the agent can't handle. Now, at that point, kick it out to a human who can handle that, who's an expert in it. But over 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, 6 years, those use cases should shrink and shrink and shrink to where really you've got these travel consultants, highly skilled people who today are doing basic bookings, who really should be doing all the complicated things, all the really difficult things. So that's kind of the product plan and vision for it. We're already moving really, really fast, but it's going to take time.
Can I ask what the business model is? Are you a tech company? Are you a TMC? I know I've heard direct travel talked about in Spotnana and other products.
Yep.
And some of the. So what's your model?
So I'd say we are in the. So the model is we are a travel agency.
Okay.
Right. So I'll leave it at that. Now we're a travel agency that obviously is very technology forward.
Yeah.
And we're part of the larger ecosystem. And Steve Singh is going to talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, I think, in his session around corporate travel, which is how do you build that perfect trip? And so, we're, as an example, using Spotnana for a lot of our API connections, things like that. And direct travel has also invested into Otto. But really beyond that, it is more of a, we are a travel agency. We are going to have individual travelers, in this case, probably business travelers who are either choosing not to use their TMC or not affiliated with the TMC, who find that instead of going to the leisure sites, find that it's much, much better to go to Otto because Otto knows that I like Bonvoy hotels and I'm okay staying a mile away if I have a car.
So you're in a way like Navan, which is a tech company and an agency kind of together. Yeah. I mean, you're a tech company and fulfillment agency together.
Yes.
And you're going to go after SMB, I understand? Is that where you're starting?
Yeah, so it's interesting, having worked at Agencia and certainly being part of the debates of, managed travel versus unmanaged travel, I actually think that whole thing's going away, right? So there absolutely is managed travel, right? There are TMCs out there, Agencia, GBT, folks out here. The reality is that in a company, somewhere between 40 to 60% of employees just don't book on that TMC, right? So where are they booking? They're booking elsewhere. And what's the one hammer that says you can't book it? Well, if their manager denies their expense report. The reality is that's just not happening. Yeah. So it's not that we're targeting the SMB market or the unmanaged market or anything like that. We're targeting the people who just want a better experience and are traveling a lot.
I'd like to bring the discussion a little bit higher at this
Please
point,
do.
Okay? I think Terry kind of said something that was very significant, which is commoditization that could be happening with agents. So let's just think about the future here. I realize it's very early days. If you think about the future, and everyone has a personal agent, the suppliers have agents and so forth, what does that do to travel distribution? Travel distribution has a lot of intermediaries who aggregate content. If we have personal agents going out, why couldn't they just go to all the suppliers, and why do we need aggregators? Why do we need TMCs? Why do we need OTAs? Why do we need OTAs or online travel agencies? Why do we need those intermediaries? Are they going to be under threat from the agent kind of universe that's coming? What do you think?
So I'm not as educated in the travel world, but one of the things that we're doing at Flockx is the way that we get acquire users as we partner with cities in these massive events. One of them is called Art Prize. It brings about 1 million people into Grand Rapids, Michigan each year. And we create an agent that represents the businesses that are in our ecosystem directly. And so our sidekick can conduct actions directly with that business, and that is the progression that we're going. Now, our mission at Flockx is to be on the consumer side, to be that well-being and that personal caretaker. So we're actually just building those agents and handing to them, and then looking for partners who will then support them over time to build the software for them. But we're giving them the initial cognitive engine that starts with just scraping their entire website, putting it into a semantic search, but then building a cognition system that says, I can actually talk to your reservation system and book a table. So my sidekick says, you've been working too much, you need to go out to a show and you need a good steak. And so it books me a table at Ruth Chris, and then it buys me Days of the New tickets at the intersection in Grand Rapids. And I just show up. And I have an agent that represents the intersection that can buy tickets, and I have an agent that represents Ruth Chris to do the reservations. And so that, I mean, in the context of the larger travel industry, I don't know as well, but I know that in the context of commerce, I'm just giving them these agents the same way in 1996 I went around and started giving people websites.
That's right.
There's a really interesting book called When Machines Become Customers, which I'd recommend, because there are a lot of ways this could play out. One of them is bots fighting bots, and particularly think of purchasing anything. It doesn't have to be travel, it could be goods, right? Where it's going to be negotiating price and fighting back and forth. I mean, we also already have scrapers looking at price, but that is an evolution I think that could happen.
Yeah.
What do you think from a travel perspective?
I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon. It's hard to imagine a world where the 12-room hotel funds and has their own agent that is talking to millions of other agents out there, right? If you look in the travel industry, I think it was 2012, 2014 when Expedia shut down the last fax machine that would fax a reservation to a hotel, right? And so that was a 15-year journey. Now we're probably going to go slightly faster, but the reality is that this is not an industry this is a service industry, right? This is not a technology. At the end when you're staying at that hotel, at the end where you're going to be, the restaurant, they're all getting enabled by different things. But I think it's going to be a long time, and I think so. The aggregators serve a really vital role in the sense that they deliver the world's supply to whoever wants to go access it. And so that's what we're doing with an Otto is we're accessing that world supply in a single place. I'll tell you, I prefer not to have Otto go out and try to have a conversation with 2 million hotels and things like that to go figure out what the best option is for that customer.
One of the things I commend you on that we learned at Wayblazer, which was an AI startup 10 years too early, was you can ask Otto why. And I think it's really important with bots, particularly in the beginning. I want to meet the man behind the curtain. I want to know why it picked that. Eventually, I'll trust it.
Yep.
But in the beginning, it's like if I don't know why, and my opinion is different than Otto's, then I have to train it differently. But eventually, I'll trust it.
Don't you all feel also that the personal agent has a life of its own outside of travel? I know that Fetch is doing stuff, and you're doing stuff outside of travel. So if human beings become accustomed to agents doing stuff on their behalf, then the travel industry is going to have to catch up. And I think what we're trying to say here is this future is coming, and you've got to be prepared. So we're just kind of closing out. Can we just ask?
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
How long did it take for every hotel to have a website? We're at that same precipice, right? So the introduction of the web was when Amazon could exist and
it was many years.
Barnes and Noble.
It took a lot of
many
years.
years.
Yeah.
And then you had channel
Years.
managers
It's
to
a
go
very slow adoption
all kinds
here.
of different.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
So the advice you would give, whether you're an intermediary or a supplier or some other part of the value chain, what should the attendees kind of take away from this session on what they should think about of this agent future?
So the number one advice I would have, and I frankly give my kids this advice as well, is go talk to ChatGPT. Go talk to Claude. They all kind of have voice modes now. You can literally have 45-minute conversations with them. Get to know how these agents work, because it is fascinating and incredible what they can do. And if you really understand how these agents work, I think most people who come either to this conference or I've been to lots of other places, they think of AI as this esoteric thing. It's a very real thing that's out there. And I guess my advice is learn as much as you can because it's not coming. It's kind of already here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And I think that's the last word. So Michael and Mark and Noreen and Terry, thank you very much for your time and your participation, and thanks to the audience for your attention.
Thank you for having us.